Welcome, everybody, to the Ring Generals podcast. My name is Nick Nenad. Alongside me, of course, are my boys, starting with Easy E, Eric Santos.
What's cooking, guys?
My main man, Swifty Jesse.
How's it going, jabronis?
And, of course, the RKJ Man.
Hypocritical Nick. Let's talk that talk, y'all.
Ooh, we got a lot to talk about today, guys. You know exactly what we're going to talk about today. We weren't even going to record this weekend, and we were like, there's so much shit going down, so let's talk about all of it. Of course, Wrestling in Florida has been named an essential business. The WWE fired 40 and probably more employees coming in the next couple weeks. There's been issues with Linda McMahon and the U.S. government and all this stuff. And there's going to be talk about wrestlers union at the end of this podcast as well. So much to get into, guys. So let's try to keep this as chronological as possible. But before we do that, of course, you got to go down right now. Like, subscribe, and comment, or at least just do one. Because when you do that, it helps our podcast. It helps put it into pages that people don't understand and stuff like that. It's not just a random thing. It actually helps the growth of our podcast. And if you like us, or you're a family member, or you're a friend, hook us up, because, you know, that's the cool thing to do, right? No. But so in all joking aside, if you are a fan, if you're seeing this for the first time and you really like our stuff from the past, if you're one of these people that just jumped onto us in recent days, go down, like, subscribe, comment, do whatever you want. It helps us out. And if you don't want to help us out, well, then that's cool too, because you're watching the video. So you're still showing us a view. So, but to get all the joking aside, there's a lot of serious stuff we need to talk about on this podcast. And we're going to start with pro wrestling becoming an essential business in Florida. Obviously, a super controversial act, not only in the pro wrestling world, not only in the sports world, but in all of the United States, because of the ramifications with the government and what this has to do and all that stuff. So, someone can start this. Actually, you know what? I'll give Eric the first shot on this one. What did you think when you heard that Florida was allowing professional wrestling, not just WWE, to be an essential business?
Wasn't surprised, but then again, it's very dicey just to look at it, because pro wrestling, is it really essential to a lot of the state of Florida, or just the U.S. in general, or the world? I mean, for the entertainment, yeah, for us pro wrestling fans, we call it in a way, yeah, we need that kind of entertainment. We do need that kind of content around here. But since when you're good friends with the president of the United States and you're good buddies with Vince McMahon, then I guess anything is possible. Yeah. But with that being said, don't want to lean into politics. At the same time, WWE, in a way, I don't know how they create like these somewhat loopholes. I don't know if Florida even knew beforehand that they were even running shows. That's the thing that kind of like does make me kind of question what's been going on. How the WWE was doing shows. I felt like they doing shows behind Florida's back or something, or what happened? Because wasn't it not too long ago when the officials actually went to the Performance Center and wanted to shut down the place? Wasn't that also one of the reports?
That did happen. That was a rumor that came out before all this happened. Yeah. Obviously, with the announcement, that doesn't make any sense, and it goes to all the stuff. But yeah, continue.
Yeah. So it does make me kind of question if what took Florida so long to even consider them even being an essential business. I think that maybe WWE just found different ways, or just they got on the phone with either officials from over in the Oval Office, and to have that happen, and then all of a sudden they probably talked to the governor of Florida to have the green light to have wrestling shows being advertised over in Florida. Don't know what the state of AEW is, although I don't know how they are doing it, but for WWE being an essential business, the entertainment aspect, yeah, I mean, let's all be honest. Even though how many times we've been shitting on WWE for so long, we gotta admit that WrestleMania kind of did take our minds off of what's been happening on the outside world. Yep. Whether it be good or bad, what's been going on, it still kept us away from at least from what the real world has to bring in. So in one way, shape, or another, I think in a way WWE being an essential business, I mean, look, as long as they're doing the precautions, I'm all for it. But as far as like essential, maybe non-wrestling fans, they might not get it. I think non-wrestling fans or the ones who have always politicked around WWE as being just a fake wrestling show. Oh, why would they do this? Why would they do that? I think it's going to be very easy for them to be the main target, WWE, and them having controversy after controversy. So I think it just goes both ways. For wrestling fans, it's maybe like some sort of light of hope for entertainment, while non-wrestling fans, they're gonna use WWE as a target to say it's unhealthy, it's not good, it's not essential business. So you're gonna hear from both sides. But for me as an entertainer, for me as a wrestling fan, hey, all right, yeah, just label them as essential business for now until we get fans back on. So we'll see what happens.
So you're saying as a wrestling fan, you're fine with it because you obviously want to watch the product and stuff like that. You want wrestling to continue.
Yeah, as long as they follow the precautions, that's it. But as of right now, Miz being sick or maybe what's been happening, I don't know. It's very complicated. So, but as far as entertainment and content goes, I'm up for it.
So Jesse, same question to you. Do you disagree with Eric on this point, or do you agree?
I'm gonna have to agree with Eric at this point right now, because right now, we're in a tough time, we're in a tough situation where basically entertainment's being shut down. We won't have anything to watch. Won't be able to watch any type of sports at all, and for us to be entertained by pro wrestling right now, it's good. But at the same time, I'm gonna have to say that they just gotta take precaution and take these measures seriously, because at this time, anybody could get this virus, and all things could go to hell.
So my take on this is that my answer is kind of complicated because I don't see professional wrestling as an essential business. But my only problem with people that are going to shit on this is that there's a lot of non-essential, essential business on a lot of these states' lists. So I think to just call out WWE as the only company that shouldn't be open is kind of hypocritical, because there's a lot of other stupid companies that shouldn't be open that states, based on, the way they lean politically or other ways, they've kept open. So I don't understand what is essential and what is not essential, because I sure as hell see things that are not essential still open. Yeah. And I'm not going to get into it because there's a lot, and I can't remember off the top of my head some of these, so I'm not going to get into it. But I just think that this is, again, kind of, Eric, like you said, in some ways, the wrestling haters attacking WWE for that matter. My problem here with this, actually not even the problem necessarily, is that this creates a loophole for a lot of other things that at least should be open, like sports, right? If professional wrestling can happen, then sports should be able to happen. At least in the state of Florida. It would not make any sense why pro wrestling would be allowed to go on, and sports, which are just as physical and some way less physical than professional wrestling, wouldn't be able to happen. So if you're a sports fan like me, hearing the professional wrestling in Florida, where the Grapefruit League and spring training exist, and they've been talking about baseball coming back in Florida, I'm like, hey, this is one step further to sports coming back in my mind. So there I have a problem with that too, is like, again, what's essential, what's non-essential? I have no idea at this point. And that's why I don't necessarily care that pro wrestling was deemed essential, because they're also a TV show. So TV shows are essential, but why wouldn't, there's a lot to deal with this one. Personally, though, I don't think pro wrestling is essential, like I said in the beginning. I also don't think sports are essential. I don't think a lot of things are essential. So, but I'm not going to shit on WWE, because there's a lot of things that I'm going to try to say this without tongue twisting myself, but that are deemed essential, but not truly essential. So, RKJ Man, take it away. I know you probably disagree with most of our statements here, or maybe we've coached you some way, but take it away.
You haven't coached anything. I'm going to be honest with you. When I saw this, after a few hours, I thought about it and I immediately unsubscribed my WWE Network subscription. I am no longer a subscriber. Apparently, I'm paying till April 28th, but after April 28th, I'm done. Okay, I have much better things to watch, like Hulu and HBO and everything else, Disney Plus, Netflix, whatever else is out there, than to watch WWE. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of statistics, okay? Because we don't want to get political here, but everything kind of it correlates, right? Kind of makes sense. Okay, so Linda McMahon, okay, she funds a super PAC. So in case you don't know what a super PAC is, a political action committee committed to getting a person or a party reelected or elected for a campaign. Linda McMahon obviously is Republican. They're committed to getting Donald Trump reelected in the 2020 presidential campaign in November. Now, this super PAC put $18.5 million in Florida. They also put $8 million in North Carolina, okay? Now, in that $18.5 million, would you like to guess the two cities where they put this money into?
I know which they are, so I will guess correctly, so just say it.
All right. For those of you out there, Tampa and Orlando. Tampa got $7.2 million. Orlando got $11.3 million. Okay? Now, where are the two places that WrestleMania were possibly being held this year? Tampa, Florida, and Orlando, Florida. Okay? So then I research and I find out that apparently Orlando sheriffs came by multiple times by the WWE Performance Center to tell them to stop doing work, stop producing stuff, stop making stuff. You're in violation of the stay-at-home order. And then all of a sudden, after this money is given, all of a sudden, wrestling is deemed essential. I'm sorry, man, but I can see bullshit from a mile away. And this smells like stinking bullshit. And I don't get it. I don't understand it. It makes no sense to me other than this is steaming crap. This is political BS, and everything correlates. It doesn't make any sense why Vince McMahon and the WWE are allowed to be essential. And here's another thing, too. If they had better ratings, maybe they would be considered essential. They got some of their worst ratings ever this past Monday Night on Raw. And then they say, oh, well, it's used to take people's minds off of what's going on in the world. Well, see, when I see a wrestling ring with no crowd, no audience, no emotion, then guess what I'm thinking? Man, this coronavirus is really impacting everyone. So my mind's not really taken off of it. WrestleMania was different because they had the time to produce that and to shoot that. But when you're doing a live television like Raw or SmackDown or NXT, you don't really have that opportunity to get that creative. So I just don't understand it. Other than this, okay, the WWE, Vince McMahon, Linda McMahon, going all the way up to the governor, going all the way up to the president of the United States, they're very, very corrupt. There's a lot of corruption going on in this country. And that's the one thing I've noticed from this coronavirus thing. There are too many rich people out here determining what everyday people like me and you are allowed to do. That is not right. That is not a democracy. That's a dictatorship. That's an oligarchy. You know what I'm saying? So in this day and age, wrestling is not really essential. And then I have to see mainstream outlets, CNN, ESPN, one of my favorite radio shows in New York, New Jersey called The Breakfast Club. They had Anthony Fauci on today, or Fossey, and he was talking to them about how wrestling really isn't an essential business, but so is baseball. You know what I'm saying? So this is just an attempt by Florida, and I'm sorry for everybody in Florida. This is an attempt by the Florida governor to get sports and to get opportunity like that to make more money, to have an influx in his economy. His government, his state economy. And what this is also doing is this is pounding on. This is a favor for a favor. Trump, you're going to help me get reelected. I'm going to call down to the Florida governor. And guess what? Boom, wrestling's essential. It stinks of political BS. It stinks of hypocrisy. And I absolutely positively hate it.
I like it. Dictatorships, oligarchies, BS, steaming piles of shit. I love it. I love it. I love when RKJ Man gets fired up. Yeah, you have an opinion of that a lot of people do have on this, that there's been some collusion from the U.S. government, or at least the re-election campaign. I do just want to say that they did give money to North Carolina as well, not nearly as much money, 10 million less, but Florida wasn't the only state that got money with this super PAC deal. So
obviously, but immediately after.
Yeah, that's where the BS comes in, is that it does seem curious that it was so quick after, and maybe the governor should have planned it a little bit better if it wasn't on purpose, if it wasn't collusion, you know.
It was collusion. Oh.
Yeah, now wrestling in North Carolina is going to be essential in the next 2 days too. It's just there's a lot of stuff going on, and like you mentioned too with the sports and what Anthony Fauci said, that sports really isn't essential too, and I hold that in agreement too. But what really is essential? It's kind of and to be honest, here's one argument I have with you. I get that professional wrestling necessarily isn't essential, but are governors not supposed to make money for their states? Because you think you're kind of trying to, you're saying, how are they supposed to make money? If, if they find a way to make money, are you saying states shouldn't try to make money with semi-risky decisions here?
I'm okay with making money. I'm okay with doing it, but as long as you're not being morally corrupt. And this sounds morally corrupt. Basically being, okay, give my state some money for re-election for myself and the president, and then I'm going to help your business out. If they had another way of doing it for businesses that are out there, for example, okay, some people kind of disagree about this. Weed shops, for example. Okay, a lot of people think that weed shops should not be open because they're not really considered an essential business.
Yeah.
Medical marijuana places. But you know what? Some people think so. So that's kind of a way you could kind of get that option out there. If he was saying, you know what, let's open up the medical marijuana shops because some people do use marijuana for medical purposes, that's a different story. But if you're taking money, $18.5 million for two cities that are WWE based, let's not get it twisted. Vince McMahon had an XFL team, the Tampa Bay Vipers. In Tampa, they were going to do WrestleMania in Tampa. Orlando has a performance center, Full Sail, NXT. They hosted this year's WrestleMania, obviously, because of the COVID-19 situation. So it's very sketchy that he did this, and the two main places where the money is going to for advertising is in the two places that the WWE has a foothold in, and Vince McMahon has a foothold in. It's very sketchy.
Well, I'll say this. Tampa was just where WrestleMania was going to happen, so I don't necessarily know if Tampa's a foothold for WWE. I think, yes, in recent times, because Tampa was supposed to be WrestleMania, but I don't know where a foothold is in Tampa besides that they announced the location of WrestleMania was going to be in Tampa.
XFL.
XFL has nothing to do with WWE, though. That's a football team.
WWE owns 23.5% Class B shares of the XFL in their
bank.
Well,
but that's not. This was before the coronavirus happened, though. It's not like I'm saying there's not really a pro wrestling foothold in Tampa. I get what you're saying. You're trying to explain it, and it makes sense, and it is very sketchy. But the foothold, I don't know if they have a foothold. I think it was just circumstantial that Tampa was where WrestleMania was. Now, again, if we see a lot of these other states coming up and stuff like that, which I don't think will happen because there are certain states that the Super PAC won't go to. But hey, and here's the thing. We're obviously disagreeing on this. We're agreeing on some stuff. Right now is the perfect time to comment if you disagree with any of us right now, because this is a very controversial topic. So go down right now and comment and give one of us shit, because there's no way you agree with all of us on this statement. So this is the perfect time. Go right now and comment on this, because we'd love to hear it, hear your opinions on this, and we know people have been, and we thank all those people. Guys, I didn't get your take on this. Do you guys have a rebuttal for Rhymes? You obviously had different opinions based on saying that you thought that pro wrestling was an essential business for a lot of fans, at least.
It depends usually, because really what really is essential now in the U.S., because it really does make everything, whatever business, non-essential or essential, what does really make it? I mean, it's I don't know how much proof you got to do in order to be an essential business. I guess it just depends on the states. Foothold as far as like pro wrestling goes in Florida, it's really dicey because pro wrestling is everywhere. I mean, isn't there also like a foothold for Atlanta, Georgia for being pro wrestling? But then again, it just depends on the states, and but as far as like the essential part is whether this virus was going to get worse or whatever, if it was going to get soften, it was going to soften up at least for the next few weeks, or at least, or I don't know how bad Florida is with the virus part. W is still going to do their own part. Vince McMahon is still going to be able to hold shows whether the cops come in and try to shut down the place or not. It was still going to continue. So even if there was going to be maybe a strike going on, WWE is still going to have shows, whether it's in a really good or bad condition. So I don't think whatever opinion or whatever we deemed as essential, they're still going to be going with their own ways. So in a way, as well as the UFC, because those guys are like outlaws too, because those guys, they don't put out to anybody. So those guys have always been in a way like gunslingers. I think Schaub said it best. He said that those guys are like outlaws. Same goes with WWE. I think those guys as well. Whatever they tell us to do, like if you shut my business down, I'm still gonna fight you for it. I'm still gonna have my show. So either way, it's very dicey. It just depends on who you talk to, really. That's what it is.
Yeah. And I think that when you look at this, obviously it's interesting because DeSantis said he declared pro wrestling essentially, which means AEW, which is WWE's prime rival right now, could just come back to Florida and start recording if they want. Obviously, I think it's working out for them in Georgia, and they also have filmed a bunch of shows, but this also gives a loophole to really any pro wrestling company that wants to work in Florida. It wasn't just WWE that was declared essentially, it was pro wrestling. So it's an interesting fact here is we could see some, we'll have to see if AEW follows suit here and maybe buys a warehouse down in Jacksonville or starts using Daly's place again for shows. Very interesting stuff. Again, if you disagree with any of our, actually, you know what? I forgot, Jesse. I need you to rebuttal. My bad. I just almost changed the subject on us. Yeah.
I was gonna throw in something with what Eric said earlier, and I mean, Dana White answers to Mickey Mouse, as we all know now. So
now it's been
basically.
Yeah, it is interesting. What's funny about this is that you see, obviously, you have a government helping out the WWE and pro wrestling, and then the California government literally screwed over the U.S. Like, so it is the politics game there. You see it all along. It was Gavin Newsom that called Disney to shut down UFC, and he's the governor of California. And we would see a lot of other states maybe open up pro wrestling as an essential business. That's where it goes. Is this essential business thing is super, super interesting, but keeping it obviously on a pro wrestling MMA realm for this podcast specifically, we've now seen two cases where one state completely disagreed and another state literally, might have committed quid pro quo in Florida here with this issue with the super PAC.
All I had to do is just wave the magic wand and there you go.
Yeah, no, it's definitely interesting, and we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens from here on out. Now, they did announce the TV schedule for WWE, by the way, will be. This just came out too. We thank our friends at No DQ for sending us a list of the tapings. So essentially, what's going to happen after this week? We're filming on what's the date here? The week of Friday, April 17th. We're filming this day. What's going to happen here is that SmackDown will go on as live as normal tonight. So you would have saw that was live. Then Monday Night Raw will be live. NXT will be live next week. And then the next Friday Night SmackDown will be live. And then from then on, they are going to be taping two shows, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Raw, NXT, SmackDown. And then they'll take a week off from filming and come back. So WWE they are in some ways trying to help the situation in some ways, knowing that they found a loophole. They aren't just taking advantage and going live every single week. They are taking some precautions here. I wanted to mention that just if anybody was wondering what was going to go on. This was just released, and that's going to go on until July, apparently, too. So they're expecting there not to be live crowds, obviously, up until July, which I think a lot of us expect as well, too, here for pro wrestling. So, again, we'll see what AEW does, but I wanted to announce that schedule right there going into at some point in July. WWE taping every 2 weeks, essentially. Wow. So very interesting there. That also, for some reason, we've heard a rumor that USA and Fox, the deals were that they had to have live shows. That seems to completely go out the door now. And we'll see if Fox and NBC Universal maybe get, the deals get messed up here potentially. I feel like there was an agreement. Do you guys feel like there was an agreement likely from the TV networks?
I mean, it was put in their contracts as soon as they signed up with Fox and USA Network, obviously. And this kind of you can either see this is that they have to tape the rest of the shows throughout the rest of the contract, or start a new contract and work things around, work these kinks, and what helps out both companies and at the end, and then we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. It's interesting, and obviously there has to be some agreement there, or we're going to see some massive lawsuits coming from Fox and NBC Universal. So
Yep.
We'll follow that story as well. I assume it will be all good, but and it would also show how greedy Fox and NBC are if they take advantage. Talk about WWE being greedy, which we will in literally 5 seconds. Yeah. But man, if those TV networks didn't hook them up, look at that, a new level of greedy right there. But all right, speaking of greedy, we're going to switch topics. Obviously, if you're in the pro wrestling world, to use a term from my friend Jared Smith, if you haven't heard that multiple dozens of people have been fired from WWE, you've been living under a rock. Okay. Obviously, it's 40 people. It's been confirmed so far. I just got a notification from a good friend, Cindy G, while we're recording this live here on Friday, that there has been 4 other NXT now confirmed people. And we're not going to go through the whole list. Yeah, so getting back to, there's a little cut right there, obviously, if you noticed. But so some of the bigger names here that were fired on this list, Luke Gallows, Carl Anderson, Rusev, Sarah Logan, EC. Well, EC3 is not surprising. Leo Rush, Deanna Peraza, Mike Chioda. My goodness, that was a surprising one. Kurt Angle, Lance Storm. These are producers.
Drake Maverick.
Mike Rotunda, IRS. Yeah, Drake Maverick as well. He's been with the company for a long time as a producer. Mike Rotunda. Fit Finley, Hurricane Helms, Sean Devari, Scott Armstrong. They wrote Lance Storm twice on this article, so I'm going to say him again. But yes, and there's plenty of other names, and there will be more names that come out. Guys, why don't we just go around? Who are you most surprised to see on this list, and then maybe give your opinion on what went down here and just your guys' thoughts on just this many people in an unprecedented way getting fired from WWE all in the same day?
Yeah, when I saw that, I was very, very surprised. It was very shocking to me, especially when the company is like Dave Meltzer and a couple other people, when I've looked it up, is going to be very profitable even with these TV deals and because of the Saudi deal. So why this had to happen during this time, I don't know. As a matter of fact, Nick, I think a lot of these producers also got furloughed. So meaning they had the opportunity to come back. And I believe it states, because we talked about July being the ending date for these tapings, that they could possibly come back. The end dating for that furlough is July 1st. So that's very interesting too, as well. That's what I've been reading, but
not the wrestlers. The wrestlers are released, fired. Yeah,
not wrestlers. I think this is very, very sketchy. I think this is wrong. I think this is Vince McMahon trying to kind of skate by the law, skate by what he can legally and financially do. And I think it's bad that these wrestlers do everything they can to try to help this guy out. I mean, he's literally got them coming out here every single week at one point to go live. And even if we're not going live anymore, because we heard about these taping scenarios, the taping schedule that they have, they're still putting themselves at risk because they're still flying in for a certain amount of time to do these tapings. They're still interacting with each other. They're still doing things. So the possibility of infection is still there. We heard about that COVID-19 employee was not anywhere near available to any of the WWE staff. But imagine if that employee imagine if you have somebody who's asymptomatic who spreads it to everybody, spreads it to Vince, then we've got a real big problem on our hand. But getting back to these releases, I mean, I think it's sad. I think it's terrible that the WWE would do this. And yeah, I've got to think about it. If Vince McMahon didn't put money into the XFL, would we be seeing this? You know, if Vince McMahon didn't do certain things, I mean, I looked it up. You know, WWE has a jet service. They have jet services that they own. They have a realtor agency kind of thing that they own in Stamford, Connecticut. I think that might be helping them build their new headquarters. Now, they said in the email that apparently that's not going to happen for another 6 months. That's how they're saving money. But, like, we're doing all these things for these talent, and then you're releasing them during a time, and a lot of people are saying this, when nobody can pick these dudes and girls up. It just doesn't make sense. It's terrible. As for people that I'm surprised for, first thing I caught wind of, Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson. If there was anybody who I thought, and this is not to be disrespectful, but if anybody who I thought was bulletproof, it was Luke Anderson and Carl Gallows. I mean, I thought those dudes were good. I thought those dudes were fine.
Did you guys catch that one right there? Yeah. Luke Anderson and Carl Gallows. Yeah. Hey, that's the beginning of the.
Hey man.
Yeah, that's gonna be the beginning.
Anderson and Gallows were, I thought, bulletproof. Literally, I thought they were okay, and then they got fired. So and a couple of weeks ago, they were in the main event of WrestleMania Night 1. EC3, I'm not surprised with because they didn't like him. Drake Maverick, he's still competing in the Cruiserweight interim tournament, guys. He's still competing in this tournament.
I wondered about that because I'm not watching that right now, but I wondered if he advanced. I thought they announced the firing after that's hilarious.
And it's a round robin tournament. So they said he's got 3 matches. And if you watch his Twitter, he was absolutely just distraught. It was one of the most hurtful things I've ever seen. So it's just, these are some of the surprises. Leo Rush, I mean, that's not shocking to me, but I'm surprised they would let a talent like that go when they can go to AEW. You know what I'm saying? And then what also makes me upset is that they got 90-day non-compete clauses on these wrestlers too, and 30-day non-compete clauses on wrestlers from NXT.
But didn't Leo Rush wanted to leave the company in the first place?
He was uncomfortable with wrestling during the pandemic. I don't think he wanted to leave a paycheck. I don't think anybody wants to leave a paycheck right now. Yeah. Anybody in any profession, no matter how much you don't like your job, you don't want to leave just yet because we don't know when the economy is opening up for sure. But I think he was just unhappy with his position previously in the company, and he was unhappy with wrestling during the pandemic, which you can't be, upset with him for.
No, ask Roman Reigns about that. Yeah. Okay. So I want to pose this question to everybody. Do these guys, like, obviously they're independent contractors, and this just might be my knowledge of what an independent contractor really is, but when Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson, or Carl Gallows and Luke Anderson, like RKJ Man just described them, when they were signed those 5-year deals, does that just go out the door? Like, do any of these deals even mean anything? Does anybody know, like, if these guys are going to be getting paid even if they're released? I think you just said it, RKJ Man, but do you truly know that they're not getting paid right now? If they signed because I know EC3, Rusev, a lot of those guys, their contracts expired or were going to expire really soon, so I don't think they gave a shit whether they were in the company or not. But I know Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson signed 5-year deals earlier this year or late last year. So they just walked out of and they got released out of 4.5 years of their contract still?
I believe they're going to get paid off as in the way to, like...
Do you know, is that just your opinion, though, or do you actually know if they do?
I believe that's my opinion, to be honest. Because, like...
and we also don't know... WWE is also... the contract details a lot of times don't get announced like sports.
Yeah.
RKJ Man, you have your hand up real quick. What do you know?
Well, all I know is this. From what I read, Triple H is paying NXT talent who got laid off, like the people we listed today, 30 days. They kind of have a non-compete, so they're getting paid for 30 days, and after that, they can do whatever. So I'm assuming if that's NXT's policy, then obviously that might be Vince McMahon's policy. He must be giving them some type of settlement, some type of agreement, and it had to be somewhere in their contract that states that under any point the WWE can release you, which is not right, but it's still under there.
Yeah, it's a problem with pro wrestling, and we'll get into it a little bit at the end of this segment, what we think some of the talent should do, because this is obviously the worst example of an independent contract happening. That's why I'm posing the question. Eric, do you know by any chance what this means? Are people going to get paid? And then give your opinion on this whole deal.
As far as getting paid, I think I do agree with maybe it might have a 30-day kind of thing for them to get paid for. if it's going to be from Triple H doing that for his NXT wrestlers, it would be the smart thing to do for the other wrestlers on Raw and SmackDown, just for a way to support. I mean, it's definitely, it's overwhelming just by seeing the number of wrestlers getting cut. Obviously, the producers, they're going to be fine since they're going to be, just being pushed to the side, and they'll probably be coming back soon. But as far as the wrestlers go, man, how are they going to make their money? That's just the big thing right there. It's just as far as like the only thing I can agree with is just a 30-day thing for the wrestlers to be paid for. I don't know about as much as contracts go. Just depends on who you talk to. The one guy that I was surprised in seeing fired was Rusev, because Rusev was one of those guys which, as far as how bad that storyline is with him and Bobby Lashley, at least he was still able to, in a way, have a pretty good rivalry with him. And it looked like there was going to be some sort of promise with him, but he left, and from what I read in the report, was that he donated like, what was it, like $30,000 or some of his salary? Yeah, some of his salary to some of the wrestlers. So, from him, it's good that he's doing that. Maybe that's what some of the wrestlers are probably going to be doing, is that they're probably going to be use the leftover salary what they made and pay it off to some of the other wrestlers. So that would probably be the best logical solution to help support some of them. But right now, I'm not saying this as a long-term kind of deal. So, yeah.
You know what, Eric? I actually think that's very interesting, and that's a topic that I wouldn't even thought of before we started this podcast. But, we've seen a lot of NBA players and a lot of MLB guys and a lot of NFL guys give back.
Yeah.
Kind of interesting. We'll see if some of the top guys give back to the talent here.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I mean, Seth Rollins, being the company guy that he is, and him saying that he, I'm tired of guys going after WWE for the wrong solutions. Well, guess what? How about the main event guys on Raw and SmackDown who are getting championship opportunities or who are in the main event picture? Maybe give back to some of the wrestlers. Maybe like Braun Strowman, Seth Rollins, Goldberg, Drew McIntyre, Brock Lesnar. I don't know. I'm just throwing out names out there that can give back to actually see if you are really supporting these wrestlers. You're supporting your friends. That's just my logical way. If you're making your money and you're making, you're the company guy and you're saying yes to everything and you're getting opportunities, then hey, why not give it to some of your buddies? That's the best solution to do it. Why not?
I like that, Eric. I like that, because I don't think there's enough accountability with a lot of these wrestlers too. We'll see. It's only been a couple days since this has happened, but
I know, yeah.
I do think following the lead of what the NBA players have done and a lot of other sports pro athletes, it would be very kind of sad to me if the other wrestlers didn't hook each other up here. And we've already seen Rusev do it, which might also answer the he might have got paid too at the end of this, which is why he might have done that. But very, very interesting. Here's my take on this. This is very interesting that this happened, and I'm kind of compare it a little bit to what I discussed with the essential business, all that stuff. In that, I think we're looking at this and we're getting angry, obviously, because we're seeing these people that we know get fired, we've invested in, we've watched on TV. But this is happening in every single company. And there are plenty of companies out there that have furloughed and fired employees that have plenty of money to back it up. Is it right? No. I think companies that have done this are, they're terrible. And WWE falls into, unfortunately, one of these conglomerate companies that did this, even though they didn't have to, but they did it. They've outlined stuff that makes sense that's come out since these guys have been fired, why they did it. They're kind of going on a budget. They're not going to be spending as much as they normally do. So business-wise, it does make sense in some cases because they downsized. Did they have to downsize? Probably not, because apparently they have $500 million in cash. Interesting thing, too, is they had, at the end of the fourth quarter, this is a lot of these statistics, by the way, are going to come from a recent podcast by JD from New York. So I thank him for a lot of this information that he gathered from a lot of sources. I just wasn't able to get these other sources. But he explained that they made $90 million in liquid cash at the end of the fourth quarter. But But the problem is that where you hear a lot that they're making a lot of this money and the $500 million money that they have is not actually 100% true. The Saudi money has not been paid. They have not been paid all of the Saudi money. So that's technically like money for them, but they don't have it yet. So physically they can't do it. So WWE isn't making as much money as a lot of people are saying they are. And it's another reason why they had to do this. And unfortunately, this is what a lot of companies do. They have to, they have to suck off the shareholders. I like using that term, but that's what they have to do. And unfortunately, the wrestlers fall second fiddle. And it sucks. And this is what happens. So business-wise, it kind of makes sense to me. But again, it's a piece of shit thing to do. And I think it's being blown a little bit out of proportion because 40 people being fired from WWE that I'm sure has a ton of employees actually isn't that big of a deal in the long run when you see a lot of other companies firing thousands of people, hundreds of people. So, I just want to show that I get why people are shitting on WWE, but they also are a business. And I think people forget about that because there's a lot of famous people that work for them. But, people are going to get fired in this time. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that we don't understand. But again, a lot of these people, too, are going to get opportunities from Impact Wrestling and AEW, and it might actually be a blessing in disguise in some ways. So that's just my take. Jesse, I don't know if I gave you a take on this really quickly. What's your thoughts on what went down here?
I'm going to have to agree with some things that you said, that it's basically immorally incorrect for letting go of people at this time, especially the pandemic going on. And, they got bills to pay. They got families to feed, got to put food on the table. They got to look after themselves. And for what Rusev and a couple of the other people that in WWE did is that they put a good amount of money of their own and start paying off the staff members that didn't get paid of their last showings. And, that's really good. That shows quite a character that what they have and, how they carry themselves, and they carry themselves in a great manner and in a way that for people to look at them as role models. So, but at the same time, it is a business at the end of the day. You can't take things personally, but even though this shit really sucks for them specifically at the end, and so it's going to be a business and you can't change that.
Yeah, that's what WWE is now, and their company, and this shit's gonna happen because they have to. The shareholders. That's what this is, And what you said about the they're not building the headquarters, RKJ. They're stopping that, and that's actually not their fault because construction companies aren't essential. Which, see, again, like we're talking about the essential. Wouldn't you think a construction business might be a little bit more essential than pro wrestling or the fucking local e-cig shop that I saw open when I was driving home today?
What's funny is that a couple days ago I was driving the freeway and then I saw a lot of construction going on the freeway. So, that's essential, right? What's going on in Connecticut? I don't get it. What's going on?
Well, it is a Connecticut, New York, New Jersey issue. Obviously, they're being hammered with this, unfortunately. Yeah. So, yes, this needs to happen more in those states, in those cities than it does here. I'm just saying that it wasn't WWE's fault that they had to stop building their thing. They just have nobody to hire, and they have nowhere for the money to go. RKJ?
Look, so we can debate all we want to about the money situation for Vince McMahon or whatnot. But one thing is for sure is that in any type of financial situation, you don't spend money that you don't have. And I look at these talents that have been signed by the WWE over the past couple of years. Did you really need them? Like all these people, did we really need to have these people? So now it's a situation where we're hiring these people just to keep them away. Yes, I know, from AEW. Yes, I know, away from Impact. Yes, I know, Ring of Honor. Yes, I know, MLW and all the other wrestling organizations around the world, New Japan Pro Wrestling. But you spend this money, and now you're telling me, Nick, that they don't have the Saudi money yet. They might not get that Saudi money. The only thing they have is a TV deal, yet you're going and paying some low-tier guy. Mike and Maria Kanellis, for instance, got a huge deal. Do you really think they were valuable to the WWE business when they wanted out in the first place? They didn't release them. They didn't release them when Mike asked for it. but yet they're going to release them now when they just had their second kid and they got to have a job. You know what I'm saying? So that's the problem. That's the issue that we're having here. It's not the fact that necessarily that they're being released. It's the fact that they're doing it at the worst possible time and that they've never showed any morals in the past. That's why these wrestlers need to get represented by somebody.
Okay, that's perfect. Yeah, I was just let's transition. Let's talk about the unions. The RKJ, I think you know a lot more about this than we do. You were the one that brought this topic up to us. So what would you like to happen? And I like because we're talking about wrestlers unions here, and obviously this is the example of when there needs to be a union. And what you're talking about too, you know, all these guys signing to one company, you know, if it's unionized, this kind of stuff won't happen. So what's your take on this, and what did you want to bring up to us here on the podcast?
My biggest question is this. If unions were in pro wrestling, if you had a union similar to the NBA, the NFL, Major League Baseball, where you see guys get at least the minimum, they're protected, the league can't just go crazy and do whatever. You have to go through the union first. You have a collective bargaining agreement every 10 years in some instances. Do you think that the WWE and pro wrestling in general would be better off? My personal opinion is yes, but you would need certain things to happen. The first thing is you need somebody who's very smart, very intelligent, probably a billionaire, kind of like a Tony Khan, who's able to lead the wrestlers into a union together. Number two, you need all the wrestlers to be on the same accord, and that's where my concern comes from. We talk a lot about Jesse Ventura. He was going to get a pro union or union going, and then Hulk Hogan stopped it. You know, you've heard John Cena and Stone Cold both say we've heard rumors that they've kind of shot down a union because of how much money that they're getting. Guys are kind of concerned with pay. So I'm concerned too with that situation because you got idiots out there like Seth Rollins who are company, who love Vince's, green. I'm not going to say it. They love Vince's green. Okay. They love Vince's green. Okay. They love Vince's green.
Are you saying that Seth Rollins might have joined the Vince McMahon Kiss My Ass Club?
Ooh.
Join the Kiss My Ass Club. I thought he joined some other club, but we're not going to talk about that. The fact of the matter is this. I think wrestlers need a union, but it needs to be all of them coming together and supporting each other and saying we need to do this because maybe Vince McMahon can't release you when you've got 4 more years left on your contract if you got a union. Maybe you can fight a non-complete cause, which we all know is complete BS because you're independent contractors. An independent contractor can go and work wherever they want to. So for all essential purposes, WWE should be getting destroyed in court right now. They're not. Because what? They've got an army of lawyers? No, you need to have somebody. I've seen some people say, oh, yeah, you can reach out to SAG-AFTRA. Whatever you got to do, you got to do it. Do I think it's going to happen? No. But do wrestlers need to do it? Absolutely. In the words of Stone Cold Steve Austin, hell yeah, they need to do it.
Here's what I always say about any union talk. It's about the wrestlers. And it takes them to step up. When we've talked in the past, anybody, for example, talked about college athletes getting paid. It takes the athletes all to boycott and say, F this. We're not doing this anymore. And it takes most of them, right? You can't have one guy do it because then they'll just be like, okay, well, screw that guy. Everybody else is fine. You're right. It takes a combined effort. And I don't see it happening because I can't imagine all of the wrestlers with their different contracts all coming together and just saying, F this to all their companies, because obviously AEW is kicking ass with the way they're doing business. I don't think that those contracts are the same as WWE and Impact Wrestling. We've heard nightmare stories about the way Impact Wrestling's contracts are, way worse than WWE's. Okay, so the problem is that I don't think AEW would I think they're getting hooked up, right? I think a lot of those guys are getting hooked up because Tony Khan seems like the wrestler's boss, right? He's a wrestling fan himself. The reason that company exists is because he won his own wrestling company. He didn't, take all the talent from the territories like Vince and didn't get it from his dad and stuff like that. This is, Tony Khan created this revolution himself. So I personally just can't see it happening. I don't know why AEW would screw themselves over to help the WWE out or to help the WWE talent out. There's just no reason for them to do it. Of course, I would love for it to happen, and it should happen. I can't find a loophole to have it happen.
This is where this kind of things kind of contradicts itself because at the same time, like you guys put in the said before, some of these talents are getting paid more than the others at this point right
way
now.
More too, way more.
There's a huge difference. There's a gap in between them, and for the lower guys, the little guys, to come up and say, hey, I'm not being well represented, and I just got released out of the company that I was working my ass off for the past 5 years or 10 years, whatever how many years they've been in, and for the bigger guys to kind of say, hey, yeah, I kind of agree with you. They're not going to put their money and contracts in jeopardy just for the person they hardly worked with for 5 years, and they don't have like a great relationship. So, but at the same time, that's why this thing's kind of contradict itself, and also they have to be well represented by, lawyers, I believe. So I mean, it's a lot of gray areas right there. So, but
yeah, and
as union part, I do agree there should be a union. They got to be protected. I mean, these guys are not being protected at all.
Eric, what's your take on this? After hearing all our opinions too, do you see this happening? And then obviously, what are your thoughts on this?
You would think for many years they would have a union by now, because after everything that they spent, after all the money that they made, after being in business for 50, 60 years now, you would think they would have had a union. It's a good thing that RKJ brought up when Jesse Ventura wanted to have a union back in, what was it, like the 80s, and then Hogan stopped it. Yeah, I mean, when I saw that video, it really made me like disappointed, because you would think that WWF would have had a union by that time, but then it would not. Obviously, how many wrestlers have come out to the forefront and have voiced their opinions of how they were treated in the ring with WWE for many years, and they never had that one person or group of people to really represent them, saying that, hey, look, my guy went through so much shit, you should be accountable for this and that. They never had that. They just had to fight, or they had to be on their own, which is pretty sad at the moment. And right now, this thing, it came at a really bad time, because these wrestlers, they can't defend themselves. They can't really go out and say that, oh, I lost my job because of the pandemic. Oh no, yeah, whatever, screw you. I mean, you're out on your own in this one. So I think they should have had a union from the very beginning, but I think the only believable way for that to happen really is, I don't know who really tells Vince or whoever probably tells them, no, man, you can't have a union. I mean, it would definitely bring us down. We would have to pay a bulk of money to them. I don't know who it is, but the only way to do that is if McMahon wasn't around and have somebody in charge, and then somebody were to, I don't know, maybe like a Triple H, maybe he would probably do it. If Triple H were to step in, or somebody else with logical sense, they would have a union by now. I think that's probably the best logical way to do it. It's just a shame that this had to happen to a lot of these wrestlers who can't defend themselves. Even CM Punk is concerned it. He's even voiced about it in the podcast, and now we're hearing reports that CM Punk, he can't be in backstage because obviously McMahon doesn't. He doesn't trust him. From what I know,
he said that CM Punk is the only one he can't do business with. Apparently, his agent reached out to Vince, and Vince said no.
Okay, so basically, Punk, obviously he's voiced his opinions, and he's also said that he's always wanted a union. I think a lot of wrestlers would have wanted that by now. I would have wanted as well, so that way we won't be seeing a lot of these wrestlers going out their own way and just depending on wrestlers to help them pay off their debt or pay off their medical bills or whatever. So it's just it's a shame. And would I have wanted a union? Yes, I would have wanted them by all means for them.
RKJ, you were raising your hand.
Yeah, so here's the issue. So Eric, I agree with you. Vince McMahon needs to be completely out of the way. I think he does. As long as he's there to sprinkle Vince dust over everybody that exists in that company, everybody will get manipulated under him. He is a very smart businessman who knows how to use his words perfectly to get anybody to do whatever he wants them to do. And I almost respect him for it. I really do, because he's very intelligent in how he could use his words. I want to take that type of leadership there, but I have a moral compass. Here's the thing, though. What's to say that Triple H didn't learn a couple of tricks under his sleeve, working in his time as a person in the executive role under Vince? Yeah, he may not agree with everything Vince has done, but who's to say that he hasn't gotten a couple of tricks under his sleeve, either from Vince or from his time in negotiation, where he could kind of stop a union coming into play as well? We like to think that Triple H is this cool boss who everybody who's young and hip who can come up and provide a different scene for WWE and pro wrestling in general. But I'm going to be honest with you, history says otherwise with him. He's done a lot of sketchy things in his past. The page comments he made not too long ago was sketchy. So let's not think that Triple H is going to be the end-all, be-all answer to this union thing too as well.
Well, the one thing about Triple H, though, it does seem, I'm going to disagree with you on the fact, I do think almost every single talent that exists in NXT loves Triple H as a boss. I think a lot of the complainers have been the old school guys that Triple H took their spot or took a spot on a show. That when you look back on it, there really has not been complaints by talent that works for NXT that they said they hated their job. They love their job. So, no, I don't think Triple H should be the guy. I think it would be someone like Tony Khan or Shad Khan that's obviously invested in his business. You know, you didn't have to do that for his son.
Anybody besides, anybody maybe outside WWE. You know, if it would be Tony Khan to do it, then obviously I think every wrestler would probably jump on board with it. That's just No, it would. I don't think it would have to be. It would not come from anybody in the WWE. There's no way, because Triple H is married to Vince's daughter. Vince's daughter is his biggest shill right now as far as going out there and explaining BS that's happened and all that stuff. I've lost a lot of respect for her just because of some of the. She's really. I get it. You back your father's company, but clearly your father's an asshole in a lot of these scenarios, and you're just helping him out. You know. And the family business still runs. And obviously, we see the stuff with Linda that just happened, right? It's not like everything's cool and collected in that family, and Triple H is married in. So but we stay on that topic all day and figure out who we want. But really interesting for the unions here. I hope it does happen. I do think it would almost take somebody outside of professional wrestling, and that's going to be difficult too, because think about the lawyers that want to deal with all the injuries and stuff like that, and it's just. It's a very sketchy and difficult topic, and I agree with you, Eric. It should have happened back in the day, but it's unfortunately, Hogan's greed, which we've heard a lot about, that ended all of that. And I don't think someone like Brock Lesnar would agree with it either, right? Who gets paid the most?
Yes.
We've heard John Cena. So it's going to be hard, but we hope it happens, and maybe this will be the last straw, right? And they go, oh, if you're just going to fire us at will in the worst time ever in our history of us being alive, right, as far as the wrestlers go, then we really need to do something here. And at least I hope that the wrestlers some of them give back to the talent that's being released, give back to the indies, because all the other leagues have done it. So there's no reason why, a John Cena or a Roman Reigns or a Seth Rollins or a Brock Lesnar can't give back to the wrestlers. Give some. I want to see a bunch of wrestling stimulus checks going around. You know what I'm saying? I want to see that happening. All right, I want to end the podcast kind of on a shitty, sad note. Obviously, we lost Howard Finkel right before we recorded this podcast. You saw the graphic at the beginning. Rest in peace, Howard. Does anybody want to specifically give any thoughts on Howard Finkel's death? Did he personally, in my life, I did not watch wrestling primarily when he was an announcer. I love him. I think he's great, but I didn't grow up with him. You guys are a little bit older than me. Where is Howard Finkel in your lives?
Man, I would just consider him really the very first employee of WWE, employed by Vince McMahon Sr., obviously Vince McMahon's dad. Very first employee for WWF at the time. He's been loyal to the company for a long time, since during that era, golden era, new generation, attitude, ruthless aggression, occasionally pay-per-views, and then obviously he got his Hall of Fame. It's sad to lose a legend like Howard Finkel. When he had his stroke a year ago, he's been having complications with himself. It's it's sad that it had to end this way for him. I'm gonna miss him because he's definitely, if not the Michael Buffer of WWF or WWE pro wrestling in general. That's just my take. But yeah, definitely he's gonna be remembered and missed. I'm never gonna forget his pay-per-views. Obviously, when he would always announce all my all-time favorite wrestlers' names like Rock, Austin, Undertaker, Hogan, all those guys. So obviously, we're going to miss that. And yeah, hopefully, my condolences to the family of the Howard Finkel. So rest in peace, Howard.
He's definitely an icon to the company, to be honest. And the only times I actually ever kind of pay attention is during those like main events. And but overall, he had an influence on the wrestlers for sure, like in their personal lives. And he's actually had like a heart-to-heart talks with them, and just chat, just regular stuff like regular people. And yeah, it's a tragedy, and it sucks to go out that way. And may God rest his soul.
I'll always remember Howard Finkel as the one, when you heard his voice, you knew shit was about to go down.
Damn right.
Like when you heard his voice, you knew something legit was going to happen. There was going to be a seriously great match. Now, obviously, I know some people are really into the New Generation era and the Hulkamania era. I wasn't really into that. Don't really like it as much. But of course, I'm a huge Attitude Era person. Obviously, I grew up during that time. When I first started watching wrestling, I was 6 years old. And hearing Howard Finkel announce a match with The Rock was so big. I'll never forget Backlash 2000 when The Rock won that world championship and Howard Finkel was announcing, a new, WWE champion, WWF champion. And it's just really sad, man. Howard Finkel was just a good person. A lot of people, you don't see a lot of people like that who compliment people based off not only their work, but off them as the person. And he had both sides complimenting his work and who he was as a person. It's a shame that he only lived 69 years in this world today. And, I thoughts and prayers out to his families, loved ones, and friends.
Yeah, unfortunately, he suffered a stroke, I believe it was a year or two ago. So his health was definitely declining in recent years. And I think that's why we haven't seen him kind of in those specialty roles that we used to see him back in the late, like, 2010s and all that stuff. Yeah, again, I didn't grow up in the Howard Finkel era, but I always knew his greatness. Right. I always understood why he was coming back for the WWE Hall of Fame announcements at WrestleMania. You watch the old videos. He has a better voice than anyone I've ever heard do ring announcing. Sorry, Michael and Bruce Buffer. He's just the best. Right. Yep. It's kind of interesting because I've been going along. Obviously, in this quarantine, we have so much time. I've been going back into the kind of the Ruthless Aggression Attitude Era, watching a lot of stuff that I didn't necessarily catch or I missed, or I didn't watch wrestling that one year. And it's crazy because the last thing I saw was Howard Finkel get kicked in the nuts by Lillian Garcia. It's just, it obviously is a terrible last thing to see for a guy that just unfortunately passed away. But it just, it just shows that the guy was multi-talented. He did his best. He got kicked so hard in the nuts that time too. I feel so bad for him after that, what I'm saying? But it's just, and it was crazy because I was just thinking about, I was just like, oh man, where's Howard Finkel been? As sad as that is, I was like, where's the Fink been? Hopefully he comes back at the next WrestleMania in Los Angeles and stuff like that. Obviously that won't happen. I think his health has been not the best the last couple of years, and that's why we haven't seen him. But yeah, rest in peace, Howard Finkel. I recognize his greatness, even though I didn't really get to see him. And so yeah, condolences out to his family. Yeah, just another shitty thing that's happening during this bad time. It sucked. And it was, it's a weird way to end the week, too, with how bad this week's been. It's just like, oh, now Howard Finkel's dead. This sucks. Yeah. But, yeah. Oh. So, yeah. All right. Well, that's going to be it for the podcast today. We did want to mention that Double or Nothing is going to be moved to next year. They're canceling this year in Vegas. That means the Ring Generals will not be a Double or Nothing this year. We're going to get in debate whether we want to try to get better seats than we had, or if we're going to just exchange our tickets and go to next year's event. But we got the hook up there. Access Tickets hooked us up there and is allowing us to get full refunds or all that stuff. And so they're announcing it for, what was the date they announced Double or Nothing this year for now? Is it still the 23rd?
Still the same.
It's still the same. Okay, and it will go down from somewhere, right? Where exactly is it going down from?
I
We
think
don't know.
it's gonna hold it in
Part-time.
Yeah, it's gonna be so. Yeah, Double or Nothing moved. I just want to announce that news here at the end, just because we heard about that. We don't really have enough time here on the podcast to discuss our thoughts on that maybe next week. But I'm sure more shit will go down, and we will have more to talk about because I didn't think we were going to have that great of a podcast this next week. And now look, it's even more topical than the last 3 we've done. So interesting. But yeah, RKJ Man, take this one away.
Real quickly, Howard Finkel also created the name WrestleMania.
That is so awesome.
There you go.
Just a legendary guy, man. That's awesome. Good way to end the podcast.
Hey, man, like, comment, and subscribe. But as always, raise a glass in the sky and salute the ring generals.
This is Watts, and don't forget to subscribe to the Ring Generals, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter.
Absolutely.
Do it, or I will get you.
And that's a threat right there.
Raise a glass in the sky and salute the ring generals.